Watch Dogs Legion is set in London, one of the greatest cities in the world, and it's had a massive influence on all of our culture for centuries. Today, with Brexit, London's at a turning point. It's hard to predict what the future holds for London, for the UK, or for the world. But history has proven time and again that where London goes, all of us go together. In our near future, London is facing her downfall. The UK has become a surveillance state, and freedom has been replaced with fear. Armed drones patrol the streets, deportation squads rip people from their homes, and Granddad is using crypto to buy a new kidney on the black market. But Londoners never surrender. Their resilience and determination is an inspiration to us all, and they are the heroes of our game.
So this is Louis, and I have a few minutes left of this case, and I know the audio is going to be a little bit scratchy because I'm recording on my phone, so I apologize for that. Please excuse that. But people were asking, I had a few people message me, in fact, that they wanted me to talk about E3, but more importantly, like no one messaged me about Cyberpunk outside of people talking about it on the stream, on my last news stream. It was Watch Dogs Legion, which I'm just going to show the gameplay of as I talk about this. I had a lot of people ask me about this and what I thought about this, and it's amazing to me because I talked about this in my newscast stream where I talked about Saints Row, where you had the transition between the seriousness. I mean, you had satirization and humor in Saints Row 2, but the move from Saints Row 2 to the total over-the-top, cartoonishness of Saints Row 3. And people debated it a little bit, whether they, I have a friend of mine who really hated that transition, but I was accepting of it. Up until the time with Saints Row 4, where I knew that the game was done. The franchise was done. That they had driven it to the extremes that they could possibly do so, and that once they did, that was it. And that's not true for Grand Theft Auto, who they were directly competing with at one point. With Grand Theft Auto 5, it remained very true to what GTA was, but it tried to take the game in a direction that was opposed to what they did with GTA 4, where it was overly serious, and in my view, overly somber and boring. With GTA 5, it very much capitalized on what Grand Theft Auto is, in being over the top, but not so self-referential like Saints Row is. Saints Row plays as a game that is aware of its setting and its characters and everything to be just a joke. No one takes what's going on seriously, and if they do, it's just for 2 seconds flat before it goes back to the entire universe being ridiculous, completely absurd. And while, Grand Theft Auto is absurd in its setting, there's a lot about it that is basically a satire of life as it is in the modern world. It's not so over-the-top and cartoonish that people living within the universe don't actually take their lives seriously. The only character in Grand Theft Auto that doesn't take their life seriously is Trevor, and he's portrayed as a total psychopath. But everyone else, Michael, Franklin, everyone else takes their life seriously. And that is not what you see in Saints Row. In every way, Saints Row, the characters in the game act in a meta way. They're aware of how ridiculous the world is, and as such, they don't take anything seriously. That is what I see as a distinction between the first Watch Dogs and this Watch Dogs Legion. I haven't played the second game, and I've never been convinced to buy it, even at a discount, because it just looks tedious. But with this game, I'm curious. I'm not telling you right now that I'm not going to buy the game. I certainly won't pre-order it because I'm expecting over-promising and under-delivering, because that's just the Ubisoft way, and I could explain to you in a million different ways what I expect to go wrong with the game, including the woke bullshit that is likely going to be in the game. But what's funny, and I'll show you an article really quick, is that as soon as people were saying that this is post-Brexit Britain or London, Ubisoft knee-jerked and were like, no, we don't incorporate political messages in our game. They knee-jerked, and now they're getting criticized by the SJWs for doing that, but they're going to include woke bullshit in the game. They did it with the last game. They did that especially in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, to the detriment of the game. And of a game that I will tell you is not an awful game, they did it to its detriment. It's just things that they have attached onto the game to check a box, and it is detrimental to the overall quality of the game. They're going to do that with this game too. It's just a question of to what degree. So I will criticize the game in that I expect it to overpromise and underdeliver, but that is every Ubisoft game at this point. And I know that going into it. Everything that I see from them that they show at like E3 or Gamescom or whatever kind of convention, I expect them to be lying. I expect them to be overpromising on something that they're going to underdeliver on. That should be your assumption when you're watching an Ubisoft trailer at this point, because they've been doing it for over a decade at this point. The car chase scene was really bad. I would have to say that of any of the gameplay that I saw, that was the worst, because it just looks like you're driving around a shopping cart, being chased by shopping carts. Like, the physics don't look real at all. And I understand that this is a game and that you can only have so much realism, but I'm just going to say it. The driving looks terrible. And leave it at that. And you can agree or disagree, but whatever. That's my opinion of it. And it's been reflected in other Ubisoft games. The combat looks acceptable. It looks like if they could tighten it up a little bit and make the animations not so jerky and quick. Like, at one point, the player character, who's just an NPC, punches one of the private militia guys in the face, and he, like, falls on his head, like, comedically. And that's what I mean about Saints Row, is that, like, there's a lot about this game that is entirely comedic. Like, even the mask element of this, like, it looks ridiculous. And with the whole granny thing, it just, to me, it just screams, do not take this seriously. And they're incorporating that with sexual slavery. It's like, I really don't understand what they're going for in this game. But in any case, the gameplay looks acceptable. I'm interested in the class elements of combat, hacker, and stealth. Like, I think it could be cool for that, like to play like a kind of Jason Bourne melee character, or where you shoot them in a John Wick style or Jason Bourne style. That looks cool. I like that. The stealth elements, that could be cool, or the hacking ability elements could be cool, where you're more like just on the sidelines, which is closer to what the previous games were like, where you're just kind of standing around and people are like, whoa, what the fuck's going on? And then you take them out one by one. That's fine. I mean, that's fine. I don't really have any complaints. It's not something that'll necessarily by itself sell me on the game, but it's the aspects of the game that unsell me, that push me away. And what I can tell you right from the get-go that pushes me away from this game, even though I'm intrigued and people are intrigued enough to ask me to give an opinion on this, like, I only had a couple people ask me about Cyberpunk with that stupid cinematic trailer rather than gameplay, which they should have shown, which apparently they're going to show at Gamescom. If this game wasn't provocative, no one would have asked me about it, because there's plenty of other games that no one asked me about. But this is the only game that I had several people message me about. And I think it's because they're questioning whether this is another black pill game. This is another game that shows you that the industry is fucking lame. And the thing that I think people are pointing out without even knowing it, not to speak for what other people might think, and you can feel free to comment below what you think it is, I think it's the narration. I think it's this AI, which I'll pause my own speaking to showcase to you. It's Joss Whedonism style commentary.
Eyes peeled, yeah?
I have no eyes, and if I did, I wouldn't peel them. Best not to escalate if you don't... Oh, just ignore me!
What are you planning to tell me about the bloody checkpoint?
Oh, there's a checkpoint. Speaking of death, you'll never guess what just happened to Ian.
Oh, for God's sake, Bagley, a little respect.
Yes, the Kellys are rumoured to run all sorts of illicit goods out of the old stables. Some with fingers and toes.
What this reminds me of is Steve Martin's criticism of John Candy's character in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, of being a chatty Cathy doll that can pull his own string.
It's like going on a date with a chatty Cathy doll. I expect you to have a little string on your chest, you know, that I pull out and have to snap back. Except I wouldn't pull it out and snap it back. You would.
The AI just never shuts the fuck up. And whenever it speaks to you, it is Joss Whedonisms. It is post-ironic humor. It's humor that is intentionally bad, that SJWs think is funny, that a certain segment of Twitter finds funny, but everyone else, outside of that 8%, 92% of people find this humor to be fucking irritating. It's not funny, it's just annoying. And this is what I can't stand about the game. And I really wish that if they're going to incorporate all these choices in the game, give me the choice of not listening to the irritating AI. Give me that option, Ubisoft. And maybe I'll tweet this out and I'll @ Ubisoft. Give me the option of just having a narrator that doesn't irritate the shit out of me. Because as much as the dialogue is kind of cringy and like weirdly like over the top British, like it's like I said, it's like what I'd expect Deep Silver to do a take on. Like if Saints Row was in London, like this is the kind of dialogue that I'd expect. That by itself, okay, whatever. Like I'm not going to have you redo the entire game just because of my irritation, but the AI narration, in my view, is just instantly irritating. And like I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing in the game. I'm trying to focus on not dying. I'm trying to focus on not permadying. If you're going to incorporate permadeath in the game, there's all this shit going on, and you're surrounded by heavily armed paramilitary goons. Why are you having this irritating AI squawking in my ear the whole fucking time? So, yeah, if you're not going to rein that in, give me the option of just turning that off. Maybe eliminate one of the characters from the game and replace that player character with an AI that isn't fucking irritating. Do that for me, Ubisoft, because I don't want to hear your Joss Whedonism humor. I don't want to hear it. Like, was it like 1999 when Buffy was big? Okay, leave it then. We're now in 2019. How many decades later? Can we leave that behind? It's not funny. It's annoying. And it's a bygone meme that only SJWs on Twitter like. 8% of the population have any kind of admiration to or enjoy. I don't want to listen to it. It's annoying as shit, and it's a detriment to your game. It is unselling your game for me. I didn't buy your last Watch Dogs game because it just didn't look like it was doing anything different, and it looked like it had a bunch of woke bullshit in it. Sell me your game. That's the thing that I scream at the top of my lungs all the time when talking about games. Sell me your game. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about is the setting, which to me doesn't really make a lot of sense. And maybe this is something that it can explain. But one of the things that I find common with most British people is anytime something goes wrong, anytime there's some sort of problem they run into, there's a disaster of some sort, the natural reaction for most British people is nationalize it. And I'm not saying that Americans are not guilty of this. Like when it came to mortgages, student loans, our knee-jerk reaction was nationalize it. And we did that with student loans, and it was a mistake. We should not have nationalized student loans. They should be privatized. But in the UK, if there's some sort of ongoing like mob threat, I find it hard to believe. Even knowing the several very, very, very large UK-based private military corporations, I can't imagine that they would use them, that they would deploy them in a civilian capacity within their own country in the way that is portrayed in this game. I cannot imagine it. And the reason being that the United Kingdom, based on the disaster currently the Conservative Party has gone through because of Brexit, they're about to elect a fucking socialist. That's the setting that is going to privatize and deploy PMCs onto the streets of London. So this is Louis, splicing in some additional commentary a day later, now that I have more information, to let you know that the paramilitary force that's in this game is called Albion. It's not actually set on their website, but if you pay enough attention to the gameplay and you take a look at some of the advertisements in the gameplay, you can see that the organization is called Albion. The question is not whether this is going to be an oppositional force that you're going up against. It's actually listed as one of the main antagonists of the game, but the actual politics of this organization. Because there's a question as it relates to this organization in that it's a paramilitary force that's a private military contractor, which is operating as a police force. While the police are not on strike, they still exist, as shown in the game, but weirdly enough, the police are in fact shown to be in opposition to Albion, because you can recruit cops to be part of the quote-unquote resistance. It's a question of what role does Albion play, and how did they get the authorization to act as police within the streets of London, and what role they're actually serving. It's pretty clear that you're going to be in opposition to them, because you're shown fighting with them and getting killed by Albion forces. Ian does, the character in the game. But there's some hints in the game that if you pay close enough attention, you can see, and I'm going to point those out to you. This was passed along to me from Short Fat Otaku on Discord, but it's weird. When you look at the billboards in the background, and I'll show it real quick, it's the scene where you're beating up the two Albion guards as Ian before he dies. In the background, there's these billboards, but if you take a screenshot of what's actually shown, you can see that there's two billboards that have accompanying Albion advertisement. But the one here I'm going to point out is from Signals Intelligence Response Service, where it says, illegal, you aren't clever, you're selfish, #SecureLondon. If you or anyone you know are here illegally, you must report it. Self-reporting illegal citizens who will be shown more leniency than ones who do not. Like I said, it's right alongside an Albion advertisement, but it's not Albion, it's this other organization. On the other side of the billboard, you have another Albion advertisement that says, signing bonus and citizenship sponsorship for immigrant applicants to Albion. Which, if that sounds eerily familiar...
They're doing their part. Are you? Join the mobile infantry and save the world. Service guarantees citizenship.
It's really weird. It's very coincidental, and who knows whether this is actually something like a larger portion of the actual game, or whether this is just fluff, whether this is ever going to be explained. In my original commentary, I say that this organization is likely going to go unexplained, because a lot about it just begs the question of how is it actually enforced? Like, what authorization could be given to a PMC group to actually operate on the streets of London? Like, how could this possibly happen? We don't know. I have not seen anything that actually says how this is actually justified. And I talk about this to a greater extent in my original commentary, and I'll just leave that part on just for the sake of you listening to it and asking yourself what exactly is being said in this game. But there's a lot of speculation going on right now. There's a lot of speculation about this game and this organization and what role it actually plays. And what's being speculated currently is that an alt-right government seized power somehow in either London or the UK and has basically created or enlisted this PMC group to act as police on the streets to actually enforce the law. I mean, there's a lot about this game that we don't know yet. We don't know what's going on with this game just yet, but holy shit, some of the speculation out there is wild. Because what's shown in the game is that the police are in effect like in opposition to Albion. They, you know, I like I say, I don't want to speculate too much because we don't know. This is just rumored so far. You know, if you have further evidence to provide, then feel free to do so. But it's just been, this organization has been cited in the gameplay as being an extreme group, that they are an extreme organization, that they have taken over somehow. What extreme means
is something that we don't yet know, but it's just that if you connect certain pieces that fit neatly together but aren't necessarily completely illustrated just yet, this might be a fucking insanely woke game. But like I say, we don't know just yet, and we're waiting. I'm waiting to see if there's more information on what's going on in this game. But suffice to say that I am interested. My noggin is a joggin'. I am provoked. I want to know more. Because I swear to God, I thought about this conveniently while taking a shit, that what this could be is woke Saints Row. And I say that with all intents and purposes to be literal. Literally woke Saints Row. You can't make this shit up. We don't know, though, okay? I'm going to tamp down your expectations because we don't know just yet. But goddamn, am I paying attention now? Oh, man. This might be the game of the year for 2020, baby. Because, I mean, please, for the love of God, I was about to say Deep Silver, but Ubisoft, make this my 2020 version of Life is Strange 2. Give that gift to me, baby. I want it so bad. Because I need another game to replace Life is Strange 2, and let this be it. Holy shit, man. Alright, well, I'll cut back into my original commentary, and you can just listen to the rest of that. But speculate in the comment section below.
In this particular setting, it's like, I just can't see it. You know, what kind of terrorism, what kind of disaster would justify the implementation of this that the majority of the population would support? Because remember, and this is actually true about what happened in Watch Dogs, the original, there actually has to be support for this system. You can't have these guys running around London just without cause beating people. It's not something that would be possible in a democracy. Like, again, you can explain this like maybe there's been some kind of disaster where the government is basically in lockdown, where there aren't any kind of elections. Like maybe there is some kind of narrative explanation for this. But it's like something I can't understand to the degree that's actually, like, we're in the game, they're acting as cops. It's not just security forces that are basically serving as an actual private security force at like office buildings or whatever. These people are basically acting as soldiers in the street.
2 hours later.
To summarize my thoughts on the PMCs, because I've been rambling, and I'm just going to cut it all out and just give you this short version. They are never actually going to give the philosophical explanation for what justifies their existence. Because when it comes to a police force, there's a difference between a sheriff's department and an actual police precinct in a city. There's a distinct difference between a sheriff who elects deputies with him to serve and a police force that is ultimately under the control of a mayor. So police chief, deputy chief, just go down the line of captains, lieutenants, all the rest. We don't have any control over those officers, over those public servants. Sheriffs, we have direct control over. If a sheriff's doing a bad job, we can just elect a new sheriff. But when it comes to police chiefs, deputy chiefs, all the way down to the individual officer, there have to be services and systems created in order to have oversight over them. Like with police, you have internal affairs, which is, it oversees detectives down to the individual officer. Like, in order to oversee bureaucrats, you have to elect or create systems of even more bureaucrats, which you don't have direct oversight of. Like, there is no oversight of internal affairs. And if internal affairs becomes dirty, then it requires another greater bureaucracy to oversee them. There is no way in which the people can actually get rid of them. You have to elect somebody to then, in fact, get rid of them. The private military contractors in this game, the only way that they could conceivably exist in the way that they are is under the conditions, under the pressure that there's so much terrorism, there's so much crime, there's so much chaos that the government would put this private military contracting firm in the position that they're in, where they can just bully people commonly, just bully them, terrorize them as they do on the streets in this game. The only way that that would be justified would be under the conditions that the government is so under pressure that they have no other alternative. Because whenever there's any kind of disaster, as you would see with George Bush, when there's a natural disaster, you just create more bureaucracy. You create a whole new level of government. Oh, 9/11 happens. Well, let's create the Department of Homeland Security. You create a whole new level of bureaucracy. That is almost always the direct response to any kind of disaster, terror attack, or even criminality. There's criminality, you create the FBI. You know, there's espionage, you create the CIA. It's not natural for a government to do what is done in this game. And in the context of being in Britain, whenever anything goes wrong in the United Kingdom, health-wise, economy-wise, transportation-wise, policing-wise, their go-to reaction for even so-called liberals like Sargon, their go-to reaction is to frickin' nationalize everything. And I'm not saying that the United States is any better with our, when it came to the mortgage crisis and the bailouts and nationalizing student loans. The issue is, though, in the British context, that is their go-to for fucking everything. So it makes no sense to me as an American, and maybe this is just the French being the French, where they don't understand shit about any other culture. Like, I can't imagine the conditions necessary where the British would be deploying actual PMC-style soldiers on their streets. I just can't imagine the conditions. And if they did exist, is this game in any fucking capacity going to explain them? My frustration with Ubisoft is that they've never have in the past. Regardless of the game, they've never actually explained that in order for this to exist, there must be a reason. And if the reason exists, why would, not everyone side with the resistance? Or in the context of the one Ubisoft game after, basically the world ends, why would anyone see these people as heroes? Why would these people, what conditions exist for these people not to go completely rogue? Which they even show in the game is real. Like, you can go rogue as agents in that particular Ubisoft game. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. With the PMCs, in my view, it's attempting to do what Infamous Second Son did, but fail to actually explain the context for why they were created, and that the majority of people support the creation of that agency. Or in this case, the deployment of these PMCs onto the streets, with checkpoints and all the rest, where they're acting as police, and they have the authority to do so. In my view, it's like, well then, why wouldn't every fucking person become a member of DedSec? Why wouldn't everyone become a terrorist if these are the conditions in which you're living under? It's silly to me, and it seems so meta and self-referential that they realize this. It's like, well, fuck it, we just need generic enemies that we can punch so hard that they flip over. It just seems really goofy to me. And I am in no way requiring them to do some sort of deep dive philosophically. This is a single one line that you need to include in terms of the context of the game to justify why they're there, why they're present. There's a police strike. Boom. Justified. But they've already shown police in the game, so there's no police strike. I really want this game to, it's just begging to be sold on something, you know what I mean? It's so petty and pathetic on my part, but it's just like, please sell me on your game, Ubisoft. And I just look at this and I go, okay, here we go. Just generic bad guys. Oh boy, knock out that soldier who's on the street. For some reason, There's no actual explanation for why they're there. It's kind of something we need. Why aren't you punching cops? Why are you punching literal soldiers, private soldiers on the streets of London? Why? It's one line. But whatever. Maybe that's just my hang-up. However, I hope you appreciate this commentary for what it is, even with the scratchy audio, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks for listening. This is something you can't deny. Hand-to-hand transaction is ass whooping you can't